An Introduction to the Science of Hadith by Ibn Salah al-Shahrazuri, 577 to 643, the most influential work on the science of Hadith in existence. Number 5. Elevation derived from earliness of audition. We were informed from the expert Muhammad ibn Nasir that the expert Muhammad ibn Tahir said, "Priority of audition is part of elevation." Much of this comes under the previously mentioned category, but there are some aspects that do not, and indeed they distinguish it. For instance, two people hear a hadith from a single teacher. The audition of one of them was, let us say, 60 years ago, and the audition of the other 40 years ago. When the isnads up to the two people contain the same number of transmitters, the isnad to the first, the one whose audition was earlier, is more elevated. These are the types of elevation fully explained and satisfactorily clarified. All praise belongs to God. He is praised and exalted, God knows best. As for the verse of Abu Tahir as-Salafi, God be pleased with him, we heard, rather, among those possessing retention and exactitude, elevation in hadith consists of soundness in isnad. And the remark we heard from Vizier Nizam al-Mulk, in my opinion, the elevated hadith is the one established as sound for the Messenger of God, peace be upon him, even if the number of its transmitters, that is, intermediaries, reaches 100. These and other statements like them do not refer to the elevation as the scholars of hadith commonly use the term. It is elevation only in the everyday sense of the word, that is, in the sense of excellence. God knows best. Section. Lowness. Nuzul is the opposite of elevation. Each of the subcategories of elevation has as its opposite a subcategory of lowness. There are therefore 5 subcategories of lowness, and a detailed understanding of these may be derived from the classification of the subcategories of elevation given above. Abu Abdullah al-Hakim said, "Someone may say, lowness is the opposite of elevation, and whoever knows elevation also knows its opposite. It is not so. Lowness has levels known only to the students of this discipline, and so forth. This does not refute the claim that lowness is the opposite of elevation in the way I mentioned. Rather, it is a refutation of the claim that lowness may be known through knowledge of elevation." That warning is appropriate for what he mentioned regarding elevation, for he was brief in his explanation and short on details. That is not the case regarding what we said about elevation, because ours is a detailed explication which also clarifies the levels of lowness. Knowledge belongs to God. He is blessed and exalted. Lowness is inferior and undesirable. Superiority belongs to elevation, as was explained and was demonstrated above. Ibn Khallad related that one insightful person said, "Being low, tanazul, in an isnad is best," and he gave as proof an argument to the effect that personal exertion and study are needed to accredit and discredit each transmitter. When the number of intermediaries increases, the exertion is greater, and the reward is therefore greater. This is a weak doctrine, weakly supported. Indeed, we heard that Ali ibn al-Madini and Abu Amr al-Mustamli and Nisaburi said, "Lowness is a calamity." This and similar statements condemning lowness are directed at certain aspects of lowness. However, when lowness is specified instead of elevation as a means to obtain a benefit superior to the benefit of elevation, it is to be preferred and not to be scorned. God knows best. Category 30. Famous Hadith. Al-Mashhur min al-Hadith. The meaning of the word fame, shuhra, is commonly understood. Famous hadith fall into subcategories of sound. For instance, the statement of the Prophet, peace be upon him, "Actions are judged by intentions," and the like, and unsound. Like the hadith, seeking knowledge is a duty incumbent upon every Muslim. Likewise, we read that Ahmad ibn Hanbal, God be pleased with him, said, "There are 4 hadith from the Messenger of God circulating in the marketplaces which have no authenticity. Whoever gives me the glad tidings of the departure of the month of Adar, I will give him glad tidings of heaven. On the day of resurrection, I will be the enemy of whoever harms a protected Muslim. Your sacrifice is the day of your fast, and the supplicant has the right to arms, even if he comes riding on a horse." Alternatively, famous hadith fall into the subcategories of the famous subcategories of the hadith famous among the hadith scholars and others. For instance, the statement of the Prophet, peace be upon him, "A Muslim is someone from whose tongue and hand other Muslims are safe," and the like. And the hadith famous exclusively among the scholars of hadith and no one else, like the hadith we heard from Muhammad ibn Abdullah al-Ansari, from Sulaiman at-Taymi, from Abu Miljaz, from Anas ibn Malik, to the effect that the Messenger of God, peace be upon him, made a personal prayer, qunut, after the inclinations for a month, invoking curses on the tribe of Ra'al and Dhakwan. This hadith is famous amongst the scholars of hadith and included in the Sahih. Other transmitters besides Abu Mijlaz transmitted it from Anas. Others besides Taymi transmitted it from Abu Mijlaz. Others besides Ansari transmitted it from Taymi. Only the practitioners of the craft know that. Others sometimes consider it unusual because Taymi normally recites directly from Anas, while here he relates from Anas through an intermediary. One kind of famous hadith is the widespread one, which the scholars of practical and theoretical law mention. The scholars of hadith do not give it a special name indicating its particular meaning, although the expert al-Khatib al-Baghdadi did mention it. There are indications in what he said which show that he was not following the scholars of hadith in doing so. That may be because the concept is something which their craft does not include, and hadith of this type are rarely found in their relations. The widespread hadith consists of a report conveyed by transmitters' knowledge of whose veracity reaches the level of incontrovertibility, darura. This condition must be met continuously in its transmitters from the beginning of its nads to the end. Anyone asked to produce an example of a widespread hadith from among the hadith in circulation will be severely taxed by its requirements. For instance, the hadith acts are judged by intentions is not by any means of that kind, even if it's transmitted by more than the number of individuals required to meet the standard of being widespread, tawatur. This is because the required number of transmitters occurs in the middle of its isnad, and is not found in its early stages in the fashion discussed above. To be sure, we do view it as an example of that hadith: whoever deliberately ascribes a lie to me, let him find a seat for himself in hell. Many companions, God be pleased with them, convey it in the two Sahihs. It is related from a number of them. The exalted expert Abu Bakr al-Bazzar in his Musnad stated that around 40 of the companions related it from the Messenger of God, peace be upon him. One of the hadith experts said 62 companions related it from the Messenger of God, peace be upon him, including the 10 to whom the Prophet bore witness to their entrance into paradise. This expert said, this is the only hadith the transmitters of hadith have in the world which all of the 10 transmit, and the sole hadith known to have been related from the Messenger of God, peace be upon him, by more than 60 companions. Some scholars of hadith count even more companions than that. Even a fraction of this constitutes the number required for widespreadness, and the number of its transmitters increases continually then on with each successive level of transmission. God knows best. Stay tuned for category 31 and many more parts.